everybody. We are going to get started. And thank you so much for being a part of the 360 Entrepreneur Series. And today we are talking about you can silence the skeptics and how to overcome outer criticism. And we hope that you will do it with wit and wisdom. And definitely, we are going to talk about how you can have the tools that you need to conquer those outer critics. And I just want to invite you to once again follow us on your favorite social media platform, subscribe to our newsletter. And if you're not familiar with issue.com, it's a great place to go to look at many publications, but know that we will have our great marriage meeting agenda, our ebook for mom guilt, how to have great affirmations created between you and your child together. And these downloads are available on issue.com/the 360 entrepreneur. And then sign up for a locals account. And each Friday, I will be starting some mentorship meetings to help businesses that are in the startup phase of maybe working together as a couple or family owned businesses. So I'm looking forward to starting those mentorship programs. And we're going to talk about every aspect of entrepreneurship, especially for those that are married and working together or in a business with their family members. We'll have some great exclusive topics on those areas. Well, let's get started and talking about this clown show of entrepreneurship. And boy, the 360 entrepreneur could not be summarized better than these images of these great clowns or mimes, if you will, because as a 360 entrepreneur, we are putting on the costume of mom, of dad, of grandparent, of community leader, of boss, of mentor. We're wearing so many hats and we're juggling so many aspects of our life. And that balance can either drive you to feel like you're just this radical clown in a clown world. You might feel like a complete imposter, or you may feel like I've got this and I can manage it. It's one or the other. But I can tell you, as an entrepreneur that's been in business for over a decade, and I've met many entrepreneurs in startup phase and in their tenure business, you're not alone in your feelings. In the same likeness of startup or tenure, the truth remains the same. Your business is only as successful as your home life. And your home life starts with your heart, your mind, your spirit, and the ability to feel secure from within. And the distractions of internal conflict are always going to keep you from being fully present in your business, fully present in your marriage, fully present as a parent or as a family member. But the distractions of outer critics can be all consuming and perpetuate that conflict that you already have going on inside. And boy, do I know this well, because my childhood broke me. And I took that broken human being and I went out in my 20s and my 30s and I perpetuated through my own self-sabotage because I didn't know any better. I was broken. I went out into the big wide world broken. And what do broken people do? They keep breaking things. And by my mid 30s and 40s, I was allowing others to really sabotage my own well-being. I didn't need to do anything myself. I allowed them to do it for me. And after decades of abuse, I knew that I had done it to myself or allowed other people to do it, but I was a shell of a person and I needed help. And the good news is I am a very determined person. I am extremely strong-headed. So through the guidance of experts, as well as holding my own self accountable and by creating boundaries. And in my mid 50s, I will tell you, I am at peace. And I am happily married to that wonderful man on the screen. His name is Denny. And he came out of retirement to join me in this entrepreneurial clown world. And I am the mother of 5. I am the stepmother of 2. I am a mother-in-law. I am a grandmother, but I like to be called Yaya. I'm a boss, I'm a mentor, I'm a volunteer, and I'm a wife, and my hats are many. And now we have 3 businesses with staff in North America and the Philippines and India. So we got a lot going on. And we have found success in every aspect of our life. And no, life is not perfect. I have started businesses and failed at businesses and rebuilt businesses, but my peace of mind and my ability to silence the inner critic and put outer critics in their proper place in my life through the tools that I'm going to share with you has brought me a lot of peace and mental and emotional and spiritual enhancement. And that's what I want to share with you. I want to give back to you so you can fast track through any mistakes or issues in life with the tools that you need to succeed in your business. And I think it's really important to make sure that you know that if your outer critic is getting away in the way of you achieving success, if those outer critics are bothering you so much and you're so consumed with what people think about you, or maybe you're worried what people will think about you based on what you do or what you say. You're scared to speak up and be your true self because you're fearful of cancel culture, right? We're going to explore how you can really put that in perspective so you can express your true potential. And you're going to learn strategies for building those healthy boundaries and recognizing criticism when it's unfounded or excessive, and why, reclaiming your power is really essential during those moments. But there are times when you need to hear what's being told to you. And you're going to discover those tools to filter out what's being said to you. And then I hope it's going to build that strong sense of self-worth. It's going to increase your confidence so you can take proper action and make the most out of the opportunity so that you can take control of your destiny. And it's really important that when you are allowing yourself to be easily influenced by criticism from others, it's going to damage your self-esteem further, and it's going to dilute your sense of purpose. And, we start internalizing criticism. We feel bad about ourselves instead of really recognizing it for what it is, someone else's opinion, right? That's what it is, someone else's opinion. And you can't let that lead to feelings of inadequacy or worthlessness and making it difficult for you to find joy or hindering you from taking the next step to reaching your goals that you have in your life. And those healthy boundaries and recognizing when it's unfounded and excessive, that's when you really get control of your own destiny, if you will. Okay. And listen, there's no doubt about it. You got low self-esteem, you're going to struggle in business. You're going to be afraid to talk about your business. You're going to self-sacrifice in sales because you have low self-esteem. So you're going to sell things at cheaper prices versus based on your own worth. You're not going to be able to lead your team, and they're going to sniff out weakness and take advantage of you. Your children will take advantage of your weaknesses when you don't have enough self-esteem. They will feel it, they will know it, and they will either might abuse you. Really, they might turn around and just really turn it on you and against you, right? So you want healthy relationships in business, healthy relationships in life. You've got to get a hold of this inner and outer critic. Okay. You got to have healthy boundaries. And that inner and outer critic we all have, right? The inner critic is inside your head. It's holding you back from taking risk. It keeps you from reaching your goals. It judges every action that you have harshly. On the other hand, the outer critic can come from outside sources like your spouse, your children, your family members, your friends, your employees, your peers. And while it's, helpful to take advice from other people in certain situations, the goal should be that you initially trust yourself and listen to your own internal wisdom. Now, how do you distinguish between healthy feedback with bad intention? How do you determine if you're avoiding self-evaluation versus trusting what you think is right? This comes with time. In the beginning, depending on your level of volume with that inner critical voice, or the volume of the noise from the outside coming in, you may need to really protect yourself and get clear. And when I say protect yourself, that means that you've got to pause a little bit longer using emotional intelligence to say, is what they're saying valid? Or what I am recognizing within myself, is that valid? Okay, whether they had great intent or bad intent, is it valid what they're saying? And can I filter that through rationally and make improvements upon myself? Because that is emotional intelligence. And sometimes in the very beginning of the process, if you had a lot of abuse as a child, you may need professional help to guide you until you get those strong muscles of emotional intelligence built up. And when you build that muscle, you'll be clearer when people are being critical because they've got their own issues, or legitimately they have something that they need to share with you so that you can improve in your own life or in your relationship with them. Okay. And you're going to be clear when you're also whipping yourself, or you're saying, you know what, I got to fix this about myself. This is not good what I'm doing. So intimacy is challenged by outer criticism, meaning intimacy with yourself and your ability to be peaceful with yourself is challenged when you've got a lot of outer criticism, but also intimacy with others can be challenging too. So let's describe the outer critic, okay? Oops, let's go back here. The outer critic is the enemy of relationships. The inner critic is the part of you and your mind that views you as flawed and unworthy. Outer critic is the part that views everyone as flawed and unworthy. When the outer critic is running your mind, people appear to be awful and dangerous to trust. Stop for a minute. You can be an outer critic, or you may be the victim of outer critics, or you may be both. You have to see where you fall. So let's discuss that. Let's get clear about that. The outer critic uses this madness of perfection. It's all or nothing, right? You're either really good as a human being and you are allowed to be in my life. Make one mistake, you're out. I can't forgive you. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to see you. There's no gray area. There's no ability for you to make a mistake in the relationship, apologize, change your way, and they accept you back in and say, hey, we all make mistakes. Let's keep going together. I still love you anyway, right? Apologies aren't enough. They're going to punish you through their own silence. You can actually do that to others as well, because you are as hard on other people as you are with yourself. So silently, you can become very obsessed by what other people think or say about you. But you can also do that to others. Internally, you can be obsessed with really criticizing everyone around you. Why? Because your internal critic says you're not worthy, so therefore nobody else is. So you're critical of everyone around you. And when you do that, nobody is safe. There's no safe space. There's no ability to have a true, meaningful relationship, because nobody can be perfect all the time. And that's the expectation. That's the bar. If you're not perfect all the time in your relationship, you're out. And you may say that to other people too, if you're hard on yourself. Hey, if you're not perfect in my life, you're not the perfect employee, you're out. You're not the perfect spouse, maybe I need to get a divorce. You're not the perfect child, I don't want to talk to you. No, that creates alienation. So when we get the trap of listening to the outer critic or being one ourselves, we're obsessed with the unworthiness of other people. And unconsciously, we will avoid emotional investment in relationships. We will not work on relationships to make them better and to make them stronger. And this does stem from childhood abuse most of the time. Now, you could have good enough parents or parents were good enough, and maybe you can go through this slide deck with me and get the tools that you need to succeed. Or you may find that the abuse in your childhood was so unbelievable that you need to get additional therapy to get into this journey of silencing this inner and outer critic through professional guidance. Something that's a choice you have to make. But I will tell you that as business owners, those decisions that we make in our business are 100% derivative of how healthy our emotional intelligence is. And I'll just give you an example. If you didn't have a chance to watch our webinar on the inner critic, go back and watch that webinar. Business owners need to make decisions quickly and effectively in order to succeed. And when they're faced with difficult or challenging situations, they can fall into one of the four F's or a combination of both, but normally one over the other. And this also affects your ability to deal with the outer critic, which we're going to talk about. But let me just rehash this really quick. The fight response is when a business owner is a very aggressive business owner. They're very impulsive. They have a short temper. They react very quickly. They do that at home or in business. People are walking around on eggshells, not wanting to irritate them. And it leads to real poor decision making and can lead to very, very toxic work environment or home environment. The flight response is when the entrepreneur will avoid problems altogether. And this may seem like an easy short-term solution, right? I'm just not going to deal with it right now, but it's going to lead to long-term consequences. And same thing at home. Got a conflict in the marriage, you don't talk about it. Another conflict happens, you don't talk about it. Another conflict happens, you don't talk about it. And 10 years later, you're staring at each other after the kids have left the home and you're saying, I don't know you. And by the way, what I do know of you, I don't like because you never dealt with that conflict. The freeze response is when the entrepreneur becomes overwhelmed with the situation and they literally cannot move. They're paralyzed. And they kind of feel sorry for themselves. They delay decision making. They don't want to face conflict. They're conflict avoidance. They want to live in kind of fairyland, like everything's going to be okay, when the reality is their indecision making can have serious repercussions on their business. Same thing. Kids are acting up, they're not doing well in school, they're staying out, they're not coming home at night, or they're leaving the house in the middle of the night and they don't want to deal with it because my child would never. And then all of a sudden there's serious repercussions at a later time. Finally, the fawn response is when entrepreneurs are so desperate to be liked by their employees, that and their clients, that they will do anything in a situation to get their approval. They'll compromise their values, their interests, just in order to appease the people that may not even be beneficial for their business in the long run. And that has to do with their personal life. They stay in a marriage that they shouldn't be staying in, or in a relationship they shouldn't be staying in. They really just are so desperate for approval. They're always making decisions that are unhealthy for themselves. And when you understand these four F's and how it affects your ability to make decisions, you can really start preparing and flagging and saying, you know what, I'm going into fight mode and I need to stop and pull back for a minute. And you can ensure that you're making better decisions when you're hyper aware of these four F's. I promise you, you'll begin to clue in. And again, this comes with emotional intelligence and making sure that you're building that muscle in, but you get clued in and you'll say, I need to pause for a minute. Something's not right here. And the same thing with outer critics with those 4 F's. So like freeze and flight, what they'll do is they'll get polarized by the outer critic. They'll just believe that. They might get sad. They might get kind of depressed, if you will. And they'll think, yeah, that's right. I'm wrong. They're right. I'm always wrong. The freeze type, those will, oh, I hate to say this, they'll denounce the entire world to justify their behavior at times. Sometimes they'll just basically say, you know, it's too bad. That's what happened and that's it. And I'm done. And I just won't talk to that person anymore. Or I just won't have anything to do with my family anymore because they did this or they did that. There's no gray area. There's no room for anybody to make a mistake in their life ever. The flight type, they'll just judge everybody's inferior. They're jerks. They're idiots. They're this, they're that. They'll just judge and then distance themselves. And that fight type, they're going to try to control everything. They might micromanage the entire business. And then anytime anybody gets close to them to give them other recommendations, they'll be very prickly and the employees will just kind of stay away because they just know it's not worth it. Same thing with the kids. They'll notice that they want a better, the kids might want a better relationship with the parents, but they can never go up to that parent and say, Dad, I really would love to go hang out with you, because they just know that boundary or that wall or that prickliness is already there, right? And fawn types, God bless them, they can't even think about the inner critic because the outer critic, because they're so consumed with the inner critic. They're just really consumed with beating them their own self up. So outer critics, they're oblivious to it. They are mostly just feeling sorry for themselves. So what can you do? What's kind of that next step? Well, the next step is you got to see yourself through the lens of the inner child. Children are, they're wired to get angry with their parents if they were abandoned or abused or neglected, or if their parent was not fair, if they, you know, treated another child better than the other. And so that unfairness is just the greatest crime in that child's eyes, and it renders them really angry. And sometimes their anger can come out through action and through words, and sometimes it's internal and it percolates and it becomes this accumulation of a sea of resentment and grief. And maybe they know it and maybe they don't. And what it does is it fuels that critic's habit of finding fault and seeing danger in everyone. They view every relationship through the lens of their parents and their upbringing, and therefore they can never allow their guard to be taken down. And what they do if they are filled with this kind of sea of resentment, they project onto others critically. They are very much about making others a scapegoat. And that's because they have unworked through, they have work that they need to do through with respects to their childhood anger. I mean, that's just, not to get too psychological, but that's just the reality of it. They have unworked business that they need to finish. And so it's really important that you understand that that leads to kind of passive aggressiveness. And you've got to learn how to refuse to give voice, not only to your inner critic, but also to the outer critic. And you also have to make sure that you are not becoming an outer critic, right? Displaced blaming of the wrong person, it becomes habitual. If people are always, if you allow people to always criticize you when it's not necessary, or if you allow them to criticize you in a mode that is not appropriate, then it becomes it manifests into passive aggressiveness. Okay. So it's really important for you to understand that you've got to be hyper aware of allowing yourself to be protected, but also allowing filters to come through when you do need to improve. And that's a healthy balance. And I think that comes to being authentic, right? I love people that are authentic. And it's one of the highest values that a person can have. And it's certainly important to know that it does not give one the entitlement to cut someone else at the knees and say, well, I was just trying to be honest, right? There's a way to talk to people without beating them up. There's a way for you not allowing them to beat you to the punch by criticizing yourself outwardly so that your outer critics can hear it and jump on the bandwagon and help you beat yourself up. That's toxic. And that's a perpetual cycle that you got to get yourself out of. Okay. So really important. You got to refuse to give the voice of the inner critic is not you making laundry lists of all the things that people have done wrong, and not allowing other people to make laundry lists and remind you of everything that you've done wrong in your life. There's got to be a point when you get a reality check, and your mind is your reality. What you think, you are. That's it. If you want to silence the inner and outer critic, you want to put a lock and key on that vault, it's important that you're taking care of yourself as if you are raising a child. People who are unhappy will avoid those that are happy. So if you want to get rid of the outer critic, you got to start getting happy in your life, and they will go away because there's nothing for them to feed on. And when it comes to business, if you've got toxic employees in your business, I've always said you can teach people skills, you can teach them technology, you can teach them processes, but you can't teach them to be decent people. And while you're spending a lot of time with that toxic person, you're not spending time with the employees that are really doing well in their jobs. You're avoiding them. And you're not in the nonprofit business, you're in the for-profit business. So you've got to make sure that you're paying attention to your culture and your environment. But remember, your business is only as good as your home life, and you're allowing a lot of toxicity into your own life by being an outer critic yourself of others, or allowing outer critics to influence you and perpetuating the inner critic. Dear God, you got to start at home. Home is where the heart is. Okay. So this is deep. It's ugly. You got to do your own homework. It's probably not what you want to hear. But if you want a healthy business, and more importantly, if you want a healthy life, if you want to leave a legacy, a roadmap for your family, you've got to do this work. And many entrepreneurs, they're going to flounder in this judgmental life of shuffling back and forth between this, toxic blame of others. Somebody blaming you for everything wrong in their life and every mistake you made and what it did to their life because you made those mistakes and it affected their life. And then that sense of endless loop of detailing every inadequacy that you had in that relationship or that they had with you within that relationship, then pointing out all of your faults and then your twisted version of what you think of yourself. This is like chaos. It's a pure clown show. And as soon as you realize that the inner and outer critic is a clown show, it is a big tent that you're walking into to be a part of a bunch of nonsense, the sooner you can start shutting it down. Okay. And I think it's very, very important that you cannot be too good for others and then too rotten to be loved. Meaning, outer critics can't have it both ways. They can't say, I'll love you but if you do this, you can't be loved. That is not a genuine relationship. That is a flawed way to be love and to give love. And we're going to create more dysfunction when we operate that way. Okay. So, this vacillating between inner and outer critic, I know it's heavy. I know it's deep. I know that you may be looking at these 4 F's and going, crap, I haven't even thought about the fact that I operate this way, right? It's a punch gut to understand that you're functioning in this aspect in life. But you can't become the judge, jury, and executioner for yourself and for others. And if you want to be a detective seeking all that's wrong with yourself, you're going to find it. If you want to be a detective seeing the good in yourself, you're going to find it. And so will your family members. And it's our responsibility as we leave a legacy, even if we're single, we're leaving a legacy of the people that know us, okay, of giving ourselves some grace. And if you stop judging yourself, you help others to stop judging you. And it creates balance in your life, right? And so when we talk about the judge, jury, and executioner, you have to remember that the outer critic and the inner critic, they love to build a case against you. They have to ascend to a higher moral ground and claim to be right and above all reproach. And you are worthless and you can do no good. This is not reality. It's taking prisoner of your own well-being instead of giving yourself life. It's taking prisoner of a relationship where you don't have healthy relationships. You have relationships that are built on ugliness, darkness. And let me just tell you, an outer critic is skilled. You're wanted dead or alive. And if you don't think that your subconscious wants you to succeed, I want you to know that your subconscious wants to stay where it's comfortable. And if it's used to you receiving criticism and taking it in and beating yourself up, if it's used to you always internalizing criticism, I want you to know that it will stay comfortable in that atmosphere because it doesn't want you to see the God-given gifts you have in order to thrive in this life. And this is a fight between darkness and light. Really, when you start working on yourself, you're going to be battling with yourself and you may be battling with others. And the more you can see the goodness and the light from within, just know that that's a gift you may even give other people. Your light may start shining so bright that they may be able to see the darkness that they're living in and say, hey, I want to work to become a better person like Darlene or like Mary Jane or like Joe, right? And let's talk about forgiveness. You got to forgive yourself. And you can't ask others to forgive you at the same time and speed that you expect. Okay. If you've made mistakes in your parenting or in your marriage or as a boss, own it, apologize for it, and make the change. The rest is on their shoulders, and they have to do their own work to heal so they can come back into that relationship a better person, or the bridge may have already been burnt. And that's just a consequence of something that maybe we couldn't have controlled. I mean, look, let's face it, you know, you may have hurt others and you may work on yourself and you may have explained your actions to them and why you did what you did, right? And they need to work on it on their end, and you need to kind of pray that there might be healing in the future, right? And that's all you can do. But it's so important that you understand that you were innocent in your childhood. And so, however you were kind of molded in that blank slate is not something you control when you came out into the big wide world. And the tools that you had in your toolbox may not have been many. And maybe over time you gathered a lot of tools and you made great improvements with yourself. Maybe you've overcome drug addiction or alcoholism. Maybe you have realized that you weren't really there for your kids and now you're trying to make up for it and they don't really want to be receptive, right? Maybe your employees are used to you allowing them to walk all over you, and now you're putting up boundaries and saying, no, we're not going to do things this way. And they're having an adverse reaction. That's okay. Time heals all things. And you need to let them, come into their own in their own timing without pushing them. When it comes to business, you may have to make some hard decisions. You may have to let some people go as a result, if they're not able to take the change that you are trying to institute. Okay. So I don't want to spend so much time in the darkness, right? I mean, the biggest clown show is scapegoating, right? And we don't want love-hate relationships, right, in our life. Okay. And the scapegoat is usually, I don't know if you know this, but this actually comes from a ritual in the Bible where a goat was symbolic to taking on the burden of sins of others, right? And so, they'd sacrifice the goat and then supposedly their sins would be gone. But we are not scapegoats, okay? We are not living in those times. And we cannot be the scapegoat for everybody's problem, even if we maybe didn't raise our children the way we should have. Or maybe we had to let go of employees because we didn't do a good job in the beginning of our business. So we created a dysfunctional employee boss relationship. Now we got to let them go so we can bring in employees that will operate under our new change and the way our new leadership is. Those are things that we just have to kind of deal with. Okay. So I want you to remind yourself you were innocent in the past. You didn't know what you didn't know. Now you know. Now you'll do better. Emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence. That's what this all comes down to. Okay. So give yourself the gift of freedom. Successful critic shrinking requires thousands of spirited skirmishes with the critic. You're battling yourself, you're battling with others. There's fierce motivation for you to do this work because you need to have peace in your life and in your mind and in your business. And it's so important that you understand you are a blank slate when you were brainwashed with such harmful things growing up. And now you can take accountability as an adult because you've got lots of great resources and a support system around you to become a better person and find that you can be mindful and you can love and appreciate yourself so that you can reject those inner critics. Why? You don't want to get comfortable with allowing yourself to abuse yourself or allowing others to abuse you. You want to get comfortable with happiness. You want to get comfortable with self-love. And I'm going to tell you, it's a very uncomfortable feeling in the beginning. Okay. And shrinking that critic is uncomfortable because you're used to criticizing yourself. And this is where it can kind of get fun. For every negative you say to yourself, I want you to find 5 positives, right? If you have to give constructive feedback to your spouse or to your child, give them 5 positives first, and then give them that constructive feedback. Do that, practice that. And I can tell you that it will start diminishing the ugliness and the darkness of criticism. And there's a powerful, substitution exercise when you spend more time on the positive and less on the negative. And one thing that you can do is make lists of positive experiences that you've had with your spouse or with your children and remind them of this. Sometimes my kids, I don't know, maybe they get irritated, maybe they don't, but sometimes my kids, when I feel like they don't remember that we've had a lot of good things, I will send them old videos or old pictures because I want them to remember that all things were not bad in your childhood. There were good moments. And you can do that for yourself and it'll make you feel good. WTW, watch the wins. Go back and watch all of the wins that you had in your life. Watch the wins. It's a great acronym because we need to go back and see how much we've accomplished and how much we've overcome. And if you're even listening to this means that you're doing work for yourself. And I would say the most powerful substitute that you can have is remember, see all these beautiful kids on this screen. You would never, never, never tell them you're horrible, you're awful, you're stupid. You know what? If you're not perfect, I won't love you. If you do anything wrong, I will stop talking to you and have nothing to do with you. You would never do that. So you got to stop doing that to yourself. Well, that is it for today. And I hope that you will visit our website to learn about our upcoming workshops and learning events. We have a monthly Saturday self series that we are doing, and we're going to be talking about every aspect of entrepreneurship. But we have to build our house with a strong foundation, and it starts with our own internal well-being. And from there, we can build our entrepreneurial life and our infrastructure from that strong foundation. So that's why these two webinars are focused on working on our inner and outer critics. Take a look at our last webinar series if you missed it, when we discuss our inner critic. And I look forward to seeing you next month.